This is a grave issue. It's a serious issue.
The president should have looked at the matter very carefully.
Strike threats at the judiciary. Suspension of JSC commissioners opens a new can of worms. And the World AIDS Day, the global quest for an AIDS-free generation. Plus carbon credits translating to monetary value on EcoJournal. Also on KTN Weekend Prime, comparing the costs of living as we take a walk down memory lane on Kenya at 50.
KTN Weekend Prime with Yvonne Okwara.
A very good evening to you. It is the 1st of December 2013. Welcome to our bulletin tonight, and we have some good news for Kenya coming out of Qatar today. Kenya has been voted the world's leading safari destination at this year's World Travel Awards. Now, celebrating its 20th anniversary, this award ceremony is acknowledged across the globe as the ultimate travel accolade. It is essentially the Oscars of the travel industry, and there to receive the award in Doha, Qatar, was the Managing Director of the Kenya Tourism Board, Murithi Ndegwa, and the Principal Secretary, Dr. Ibrahim Mohammed. And the Cabinet Secretary, Phyllis Kandie, has also made a statement on this, saying that this will boost the country's efforts in increasing the number of arrivals in the country. So that is some good news coming out of Doha, Qatar for the country this first day of the last month of the year 2013. Let's get to our top stories tonight. Now, all pending cases in courts across the country will be suspended this coming Wednesday. All judges and magistrates from the 47 counties are expected to assemble in Nairobi for a special meeting to deliberate on the president's decision to suspend 6 members of the Judicial Service Commission. And as KTN's Asha Mwilu reports, President Uhuru Kenyatta may have opened a new can of worms with his decision on the JSC.
The doors of the Supreme Court remained closed for business, but inside, a high-level meeting was ongoing. The remaining members of the Judicial Service Commission held a closed-door meeting that stretched on for more than 2 hours. Sources say the suspension of 6 of its members by President Uhuru Kenyatta was top on the agenda. Even though the 6 have remained tight-lipped, the rest of the judiciary is hinting at a possible stalemate over the matter.
We have called a meeting for the judicial officers, that is all the judges and the magistrates and the cases, to come to Nairobi so that they can take a position with respect to what has transpired for the 6 commissioners that have been put on suspension, and a tribunal has been formed to probe their conduct.
That means that any Kenyan who has a case on Wednesday should not prepare to go to court?
That could be the position, because it's a general meeting. A general meeting is a meeting of all the judicial officers.
If they resolved that unless the attack on the judiciary stops, they are down in their toes, what is that consequence for the country?
The president acted on the provisions of Article 251(4) of the Constitution, which grant him powers to suspend members of a commission after receiving a complaints petition from the National Assembly. The president is thereafter mandated to appoint a tribunal to investigate the conduct of the suspended commissioners. And that is where the Pandora's box was opened.
If we look at the composition of the members of this tribunal, there is no doubt in our mind that there is no impartiality and there is no independence in that tribunal. It looks like these are members of the tribunal who will definitely advance partisan interests.
And we will not stand by and watch the judiciary being bastardized, the judiciary being raped, the judiciary being belittled, and the judiciary being messed up.
No institution is above the law. And when it comes to matters which are of a judicial nature or a dispute, which is before a court of law, whether you disagree with it or not, your first duty is to obey the court order.
He's taking us in those years, in 1960s, when one president could stand and say, I want so and so to be detained, and that happens.
The Judicial Service Commission is reportedly planning to file a court order seeking to block the Ringira Tribunal from investigating the 6 commissioners. Legal experts are now worried that the executive could in turn gang up with Parliament to frustrate the judiciary. As the circus continues, the ordinary Kenyan finds himself once again on the receiving end. Ashamwilu, KTN, Nairobi.
Well, it appears that change at the Judicial Service Commission is inevitable anyway. Even without the suspension, the LSK is scheduled to conduct elections to replace its representative at the JSC, Ahmed Nasir Abdullahi, whose term is set to expire. Further, President Uhuru Kenyatta is also expected to announce the retirement of an unnamed commissioner. Ben Kitili now reports on the changing face of the Judicial Service Commission.
The intrigues in the powerful Judicial Service Commission are set to move a notch higher. The fate of the 6 suspended JSC commissioners notwithstanding, change is coming to the commission and indeed the judicial system in general. The tour of service for JSC members is embedded in the Constitution. The law stipulates that some members of the Vital Commission serve for 3 years, while others serve for 5 years to ensure that no one group is in office for too long.
For purposes of continuity, it's you stagger them, one 3 years, the other one 5 years, so that they don't all of them exit, so that when another one comes, he can pick, he can be mentored by the ones who is found there in terms of being debriefed.
First, in October this year, Justice Isaac Lenaola retired as a member of the Judicial Service Commission after serving for 3 years. Kisumu High Court Judge Justice Agri Muchelule was immediately elected to replace Lenaola as the Kenya Magistrates and Judges Association representative at the JSC. The other facet of the JSC that could potentially change is the Law Society of Kenya's representation in the JSC. Currently, its 2 members are Florence Mwangangi and the outspoken Ahmed Nasir Abdullahi. While Mwangangi is serving for the 5 years, Abdullahi's term ends on December 31st.
So our elections will still proceed, irrespective of what is happening, because we've already commenced the process of undertaking the elections.
And as LSK prepares for the elections, Abdullahi will be seeking re-election. He will, however, face competition from 2 fellow former LSK chairmen, Professor Tom Ojienda and Okongo Omogeni, as well as former commissioner of the defunct Interim Independent Electoral Commission IIEC, Ken Nyaundi. The public's representatives in the Judicial Service Commission are Professor Christine Mango and Reverend Samuel Kobia. One of them has a 3-year term which has already expired, while the other will serve for the 5 years. However, when retired President Mwai Kibaki made the appointments, he did not distinguish who between the 2 will be replaced after 3 years. President Kenyatta has to decide who between the 2 will retire. As Chief Registrar to the JSC, Gladys Sholei served as Secretary to the Commission. However, following Sholei's removal, the position remains vacant as the JSC is yet to complete the process of hiring another registrar. Meanwhile, the Supreme Court, which hears and determines presidential election disputes, could bear some changes by the next general election. Chief Justice Willy Mutunga is set to retire in 2017, and the succession battle is in full gear. Other judges of the Supreme Court, Deputy Chief Justice Kalpana Rawal and Justice Philip Tunoi, are also approaching retirement age, and more changes could be on the way in the corridors of justice. Ben Kitili, KTN.
This year's National World AIDS Day celebrations took place in Mombasa amid mixed statistics. While the country is marking a reduced rate of new infections, Kenya still has one of the world's highest population of people living with HIV and AIDS, with the figure currently at 1.6 million. And as Ferdinand Omondi reports, youth and women remain particularly vulnerable.
Kenyans march on the streets of Mombasa to mark World AIDS Day. The country is reporting a reduced rate of new infections, but the country still has 1.6 million people living with HIV and AIDS, which is one of the world's highest. Among them is Ali Mlalanaro, a policeman who has been living with the virus for over 20 years.
I'm proud to be positive and to know my status. Na mpaka dakika hivi niko najisikia mzuri sana kwa sababu nimejua hali yangu. I'm very proud to know my status.
Mlala Naro is a glowing example of the benefits of knowing your HIV status and living positively. He says obedience to his medication schedule and positive thinking has enabled him to live quite a normal life.
Ushauri wangu mimi ni kuambia watu wasirudi nyuma. Kujijua ni mzuri na ukijijua ndio pale utasaidiwa. Usipojijua huwezi saidika. Kama mimi sasa niko na over 20 years positive living. Na niko na kazi nafanya na kuna matatizo na sisikii kumwa na mali.
While huge strides have been made in the management of people living with HIV, the fight against the spread of the virus is not so inspiring. 44% of new infections are recorded among married or couples in stable relationships, a damning verdict on infidelity in the country. Casual sex, especially among the youth, follows with 20% of new infections, with medics concerned that young women are more afraid of getting pregnant than contracting HIV. First Lady Margaret Kenyatta noted with dismay that the proportion of women living with HIV is significantly higher than men.
How can we rest when young mothers whose hope of remaining healthy to bring up their children is eroded by a virus that we can control? We must empower girls and create safe havens in institutions of learning to free them from the burden of HIV/AIDS.
I also urge the ministry, in collaboration with various county governments, to train the community health workers to provide more grassroots impact on the fight against HIV and AIDS.
The city of Nairobi marked World AIDS Day by conducting voluntary testing in several states in a campaign to get more people aware of their HIV status. Kisumu held their celebrations at the sports grounds, with the speakers calling for people to be more proactive in the fight against HIV, whether by getting tested or living responsibly. The country is working towards getting to zero discrimination, zero new infections, and zero AIDS-related deaths. But it is efforts aimed at achieving that objective that face a stern test. This World AIDS Day, Kenya marks a reduction in new infections and prevalence rates. However, the country's population of people living with HIV and AIDS is still among the highest in the world. The journey to zero is still a long way off. Ferdinand Omondi, KTN, Mombasa.
And indeed, like Ferdinand has mentioned in that story, young people and women continue to remain vulnerable, which is why the World Health Organization has launched some new recommendations to increase testing, counseling, treatment and care for adolescents, specifically those between the ages of 15 and 24. Now, some of the recommendations that the World Health Organization has made, including the fact that governments review their laws to make it easier for adolescents to obtain HIV testing without the consent of their parents. And the guidelines also propose improved quality care and social support for adolescents, prioritizing planning and providing HIV testing and counseling, as well as care services for adolescents who are at risk. Now, all of this, of course, is towards creating an AIDS-free generation. That, of course, is the global target in the fight against HIV and AIDS. And with the news that 1 million babies were born HIV-free to HIV-positive mothers, it seems we may be well on the way to achieving this. Sharon Momanyu took a deeper look at the report, and here is that story.
For 17 years, Jacinta Wanjiku has lived a HIV-positive life, having discovered her status at only 15 years of age.
Nilipata virusi kwa kutembea kwangu na nikapata mtoto 1996. Kwa mapenzi ya Mungu huyo mtoto aliaga.
This discovery shocked and drew her back momentarily, but Jacinta picked herself up, determined that though HIV positive, she was going to manage the condition and live life with a positive mindset.
Mimi hujisikia niko uhuru. I like my status. Najipenda mimi mwenyewe, napenda watoto wangu.
Jacinta has since gotten herself a partner with whom she has 3 children, all HIV negative. The last born, her 7-month-old daughter, is yet to undertake her 3rd and final HIV test, the first 2 having indicated that she is free of the virus.
Siali ya pili niliona ametolewa hapa kwa makwapa. Sasa ikatoka. Sasa nagojea siali ya 3.
She says that what has helped her live a healthy life is self-acceptance and having a positive attitude. She advises other people living with the virus that acceptance and a will to forge ahead are the first steps to living both a physically and mentally healthy life.
Isi ugonjwa. Hapana. Si wakati tulikuwa tunagoja tuwe bedridden, tutolewe kwa kitanda, tutolewe mavi, watu watuangalia. Hapana. Hii ni wakati wa kupimwa status zako, kujua hali yako na kuanza madawa.
And as the world commemorated the 25th World AIDS Day today, statistics released by the Joint United Nations Program on HIV and AIDS are encouraging, depicting a 33% decrease in new HIV infections since 2001, a 29% decrease in AIDS-related deaths since 2005, a 40-fold increase in access to antiretroviral therapy between 2002 and 2012, and a 52% decrease in new HIV infections in children since 2001. Other statistics also indicate that 1 million babies were born HIV-free to HIV-positive parents in Africa this year. The Kenya Sex Workers Alliance and the Bar Hostess Empowerment and Support Program commemorated the day by carrying out a community service, cleaning the Kasarani Health Center. The organizations have members living with HIV, and they conduct capacity building programs to enable these members live a healthy life and help them prevent mother-to-child transmissions.
Even if you're HIV positive and you're a sex worker, you're pregnant, you have big chances of giving birth to HIV negative children.
With the theme for this year's World AIDS Day being strengthening results for an AIDS-free generation through shared responsibility, effective measures set up to completely stop the transmission of HIV from mother to child could be the first step to an AIDS-free generation. Jacinta's 3 children are just like the 1 million children born HIV-free to HIV-positive parents in Africa, indicating that although more can still be done, the fight against HIV and AIDS continues to take positive strides. Sharon Momani for KTN at Huruma in Nairobi.
Now, yesterday, we brought you the story of Isiolo and its journey to become a resort city. An international airport is under construction. An abattoir is almost complete. The town is expanding its sewage system and also upgrading its water and electricity capacity. But not everyone is happy about the prospects of the resort city. And tonight, Rita Tinina reports on the dissenting voices as Isiolo gears up for city status.
On the border between Isiolo and Laikipia, camels and cows have come to water. The Wasonyiro River has been the lifeline for pastoralists here for years. But this area, known as Noel Kenyang, which loosely translates to crocodile bed in Maasai, is about to change forever. That is, if plans to put up a dam here take off.
That has also the capacity of holding around 250 gallons of water, 250 million gallons of water.
A mega dam by any standards, which is expected to feed the construction of and consumption by the Isiolo Resort City. But these residents are far from convinced.
But you don't yet understand what is the purpose of this dam and why is it being constructed.
The dam, according to a feasibility study, will take 5 to 8 months to fill, and those who live downstream are worried.
The company has not explained some of the mitigations measures they will use or they will put in place to make sure the people living downstream are not going to suffer.
As the national and county governments gear up for the Isiolo Resort City, residents insist they must have a say in plans for the dam.
Can they try to engage communities in all phases of the program?
Some 200 kilometers from here, more opposition to the resort city, this time by conservationists.
We have a herd of elephants who are totally residents, a herd of gravy zebras who are totally residents of the area that has been identified as a resort city.
Part of the 6,000 acres of land set aside for the resort city conservationists say cut across the animal migratory corridor at the Buffalo Springs, Shaba and Samburu National Reserves.
They move across these areas, and our worry is, where will they go? Where will they pass through?
Already, conservationists argue that the upgraded Isiolo Marsabit Road is taking a toll on wildlife numbers.
Now, the biggest problem is that it is now tarmacked and the speed of the vehicles is just so high.
Such road signs give an indicator of who has the right of way, but they have not served to save the animals. From the spotted hyena, the rarely seen aardwolf, the striped hyena, to the endangered gravy zebra, the animals are knocked down by speeding vehicles. There are only about 2,500 gravy zebras in Kenya, almost the total world population. Majority of them are found in northern Kenya.
This year alone, we lost 15 gravy zebras, which has been knocked by cars in this highway.
Speeding vehicles have even now done the fastest land animal, the cheetah.
We are losing more than 10 animals every day through this highway.
Such statistics from roadkills, conservationists say, is enough evidence that the new city will bring no good tidings to residents of the wild.
If this resource city happens, actually, that will be the end of conservation in the biggest part of the northern Kenya.
Tourism is one of the key drivers that the government hopes will help achieve the economic vision in its 2030 development project. But to conservationists, setting up the resort city so close to national reserves could threaten the very existence of the wildlife that the government will be banking on to help market the resort city and end up being counterproductive in the long run. Rita Tinina, KTN, Aramiet, Isiolo County.
Thank you for that, Rita. Let's stay with matters of conservation. Reduction of carbon emissions is one of the key priorities for conservationists who are seeking ways of mitigating the effects of climate change. Now, in Nyeri County, a self-help center is leading the way in such efforts through the construction of energy-saving jikos known as Kunimbili. And as Carol Derry reports on Eco Journal tonight, the jikos are already making a difference in the lives of villagers in Nyeri.
Nderito hammers away, doing what he does best to ensure that his craft is flawless. He has been at it for a while now, constructing energy-saving jikos. He uses 1, 2, and has only praise for this particular kind that goes by the name Kunimbili jiko. The normal jiko that is in use in many homesteads pales in comparison to this energy-saving stove that uses less energy by up to 30%.
Hii majiko iko njia mingi sana unaweza itumia. Haitumii kuni. Ile kuni unaweza kuwa unatumia tuseme about 2 months, unaweza tumia 4 months.
He takes us through the process of making the Kunimbili jiko and what sets it apart from the regular one.
Bia nini mchagara wengine inaitwa vermiculite is a poor conductor of it. Juu sasa hiyo jiko hata tukiwa tunaukarabati na mabati, the outer liner haiwezi kuwa moto na pia inazuia moto kwenye hiyo nini liner.
The initiative to seek more ways of conserving energy comes against a backdrop of growing concern about the state of the climate around the globe. Experts say the irregular rainfall patterns or the absolute lack of it in some regions are only a few of the signs that the global climate is changing.
We are working extensively to educate the communities who are resource poor.
Alice Doita, the programs manager of the Self-Help Center, says they have been advocating for the use of these jikos in the rural areas of Nyeri, and the message, it appears, is beginning to sink in.
Farmers have really adopted this stove, especially in Nyeri County where there is scarcity of fuel.
Inscribed on the jiko is this serial number that helps to track its use once it is bought. And this effort deep inside central Kenya is now slowly part of a growing market for carbon dioxide, the main gas blamed for global warming. Under the international treaty known as Kyoto Protocol, richer countries pump money into climate-friendly projects such as this one, and that is counted as their contribution in reducing carbon emissions. Kenya is a signatory to that treaty.
The emissions, it reduces the amount of smoke that comes out during cooking, and therefore we reduce the amount of the carbon emissions in the air. Statistics show that we reduce 0.3 metric tons per year per stove, if that stove is efficiently and effectively used.
The carbon credits have monetary value, hence the more energy saved, the more the value, pushing innovators to find ways of saving energy.
You earn credits or you earn money for reducing emissions.
It is not just about the carbon credits, the health benefits too are immense.
Hii jiko haina mochi.
You as a woman with your children in the kitchen will not have to suffer from respiratory diseases here and forth, because we realize like 10% of deaths in Nyeri County, that's an estimate, are dying out of the emissions from the kitchen.
But there is still a long way to go for this emerging market, and Kenya's bid to be part of it.
I don't think there is much being done. Although recently we have seen so many people have come up with different projects, and especially like energy saving jikos.
The project was initiated in Nyeri County because of the Mount Kenya forest and also targeting the Aberdare forest.
Kenya is currently embarking on a climate change law, having put in place a response strategy 4 years ago, and Alice and her team remain optimistic. The issue of global climate change is one that has left scientists and experts baffled, scratching their heads trying to find a way and a solution to mitigate the emission of carbon. And one way of doing this is to encourage the users to reduce the amount of carbon emissions in their homes through purchase of carbon credits. They say Kenya still has a long way to go, but this is possible and can be done. Carol Derry for KTN in Nyeri County. Welcome back to KTN Weekend Prime. Now, with the ICC cases against President Uhuru Kenyatta, his deputy William Ruto, and radio journalist Joshua Arap Sang, it has become evident that Kenya requires a local mechanism to try international crimes. Hence the proposal to establish an international crimes division of the High Court. Since Kenya became a situational country with 3 cases pending at the Hague-based court, Kenya has come under attack over its treatment of witnesses expected to testify against the 3 suspects. But during a side event of the recent ICC state parties meeting held at the Hague, Attorney General Githu Muigai did not shy off to state the government's stand on its cooperation with the ICC.
It appears that nobody has ever asked themselves, how did this case get to court if the evidence was in the custody of the Kenya government?
But one pressing issue is the establishment of the International Crimes Division of the High Court, which experts say it is expected to be launched by next year.
It is good and only necessary that we have a specialized division that does not deal with the local matters, that can effectively deal with these international crimes. And the time for that has come.
The ICD of the High Court is expected to complement the ICC in prosecuting both international and transnational crimes. The ICD court will be molded on the standards of the ICC with the necessary modification to suit Kenyans. 6 objectives adopted by the Judiciary Service Commission are expected to be in place. Key among them are the Chief Justice to establish the court administratively, an independent prosecution unit to be established, a fully funded witness protection agency to be established, seeking to amend existing legislation to enable ICD to do its work, and the state to mobilize both financial and technical capacity.
One which is the most recent is what has been already done by the National Assembly to begin considering withdrawing Kenya from the Rome Statute. That happens then it means that we have to revisit part of the recommendations that we have made concerning this quote being modeled on ICC.
The judiciary, as we understand, has got enough a budget for it, and it has been set aside to set up this sort of division. Remember, this is a division that will have to be equipped to international standards. So therefore, the issue of just setting it up is not having a judge and going into a court and starting it off.
But there's one major challenge in the establishment of this court. This follows Kenya's concerted efforts to pull out of the Rome Statute, which established the ICC. Once the court is fully functional, it will have a 7-judge bench sitting in 3 panels with 1 extra judge. The court will be based in Nairobi, but it is expected to be mobile. Winnie Kamau, KTN.
There is nothing new about complaints about the price of living in this country, or rather the rising cost of living. But no one understands this better than those Kenyans who witnessed the birth of our nation 50 years ago. And on Kenya at 50 tonight, we talk to Kenyans who have lived through the different social structures as dictated by the costs of living.
Meet Mohammed Suleiman Munyu, also known as Babu, one of the oldest residents of Nairobi's Pumwani area. The 80-year-old grandfather of 6 opened this shop way back in 1973, just 10 years after independence. Over the years, Babu has seen the varying effects of the rising cost of living. He says the cost of living has become increasingly unbearable to many Kenyans.
Saa ingine mama na watoto vitu vya shilingi 100, mama hawezi kubeba peke yake, lazima aje na watu wa kumsaidia.
Babu moved to Pumwani in 1970. He says his initial capital investment on this shop was only 1,700 shillings.
Nilikuwa na dukani, duka ya wholesale. Nikaja na mikokoteni miwili, imejaa bidhaa. Kwa sababu wakati ule vitu havikuwa ghali sana, vilikuwa ni rahisi. Na niliweza kuwa na karibu kila kitu.
Munyu says that back in the 70s, basic commodities like cooking oil, sugar and maize flour were very cheap.
Sukari wakati ule ilikuwa ni rahisi. Vitu kama unga, nakumbuka unga wa jogoo ambao ulikuwa kwa wakati ule ilikuwa ni shilingi, mfuko mmoja wa kilo 2 kwa shilingi 1 shilingi 1 na senti 30.
Fast forward to 2013 and the story is quite different. A kilogram of sugar is now 165 shillings. Maize flour, which is a country's staple food, has skyrocketed to 138 shillings, while milk is now 87 shillings a litre. 50 years ago, 1 shilling was enough to buy a commodity at the shop, and Babu made enough money to send his mother 10 shillings for her upkeep every month. Then, a 2-bedroom apartment in California area would go for as little as 450 shillings.
Sasa hivi imefika shilingi 20,000. Na yule ambaye analipisha rahisi sana shilingi 15,000. Lakini mpangaji mpya akija, anakuja na kodi mpya.
Across town in Ngara area, we meet Mama Shiro. She opened this grocery shop 24 years after Babu's. Just like Babu, Mama Shiro says life was easier then than it is right now. For 500 shillings, she bought a sack of onions, potatoes and tomatoes, which fully stocked her kiosk.
Sababu ukiangalia wakati huo vile tulikuwa tukununua vitu na sasa iko tofauti. Kwa mfano, kama wakati huo kitunguu ulikuwa unanunua hata neti 150 wakati huo. Na ukiangalia na sasa unanunua 1,000 na kitu, ile neti dogo hata neti kubwa.
Life has drastically changed for many Kenyans. Even as we mark 50 years of independence, many don't see the need of celebrating. The rate of inflation and the high cost of fuel has driven up the cost of living to a point that many Kenyans cannot even afford basic needs.
Tulikuwa tunafurahia maisha, hata ukiwa na shilingi 100 unaweza nunua sukari, mkate, maziwa, hata majani. Lakini siku hizi ni kidogo sana. Na kwa wenye tuko town, wenye watoto wamezoea mkate na maziwa, inafika mahali kama kuna kuvutana.
Ukienda dukani na 1000 ungefanya shopping yako. Lakini kwa sasa 1000 it's like only for breakfast.
Mimi kwangu nimekunywa chai. Na tulumwenye haja kunywa chai tangu jana na juzi.
Najma Ismail, Kenya at 50.
Double world champion and former record holder Asbel Kiprop and Mika Kogo will lead Kenyan athletes at the inauguration of Zaid Charity 10-kilometer road race in the United Arab Emirates on the 31st of January 2014. This and more in our local sports wrap.
The race will be held at Abu Dhabi along Yas Marina Road, which is used for hosting Formula 1 circuit. The race is organized by Fahad Abdulaziz Al Braik and is a charity run to support kidney patients from all over the world. Former 10-kilometer world record holder Mika Kogo is a road run specialist and a marathoner who will lead his running mates Emmanuel Bet, Mesha Kosge, Ezekiel Kosge, and other 8 road race specialists to the occasion.
Well, I feel great, to be among those invited to grace the occasion during the Kidney Foundation 10-kilometer race in Abu Dhabi.
For us to have a relationship with your country and your leaders is the most important for all of us, that we develop sports to improve the standard of the youth of our countries.
A section of Gor Mahia members have expressed their worry over non-communication from Gor Mahia Secretariat over the forthcoming general elections, which is slated for 15th of December.
We want free, fair, credible and verifiable elections in Gor Mahia. So those are the 4 pillars that we are insisting on.
Every cadet is the only candidate who is challenging Chairman Ambrose Rachier.
The annual Nairobi Swimming Association Gala came to a close today after 2 days of swimmers trying to outdo each other at the Moi International Sports Swimming Arena. The event attracted participants from as far as Mombasa and Nakuru, with most swimmers in search of Africa Championships qualifying times.
Kenya is hoping to send a strong contingent to South Africa for the African Swimming Championships set for March and April next year, where the host country is expected to dominate the competition. It's for this reason that the Nairobi Swimming Association is taking no chances in ensuring only the best Kenyan swimmers are selected for the continental showpiece.
For this gala, NASA has to invite you to come and participate. Unlike the other galas where it's open, you must be able to meet the time standards, and then NASA needs to invite you to come and participate.
The Nairobi Swimming Association Invitational Gala that came to an end today saw most swimmers qualify for the African Championships, while some who came into the competition having already qualified were able to better their times.
Moving forward, we are working on making sure that we're able to make swimming sustainable.
The trials for the Africa Championships will be held early next year. Apart from getting an opportunity to showcase their swimming skills, winners of various events were presented with medals and trophies. Lynn Washira, KTN Sports Today.
Well, that's it for sports, but the campaign continues against stigmatization of people with albinism. The drive, dubbed Color Kwa Face, pitched camp right here at the Standard Media Group today, and it was fun and lots of color for families who participated in the Family Fun Day sponsored by the Standard Media Group. The group's senior management was also in attendance and donated bottles of sunscreen lotion to the people with albinism.
At the far
Right, and that's all we had for you tonight. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you for your feedback on our bulletin tonight. Indeed, it's been a pleasure. We will see you again tomorrow. Do take care and God bless.